Passion upon those that are here that may be hurt in one way or another, and just to guide us through the day here in Christ's holy name. We have any business that the class needs to attend to? If not, Charlene, you want to speak to the class a second this morning?
We had a kitchen fire Friday evening. So if anybody has an electric stove or knows anybody that has an electric stove, Chief,
the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that sleep left him. In other words, he woke up excited here in this. Now, in the second reign right here, I want to point out a little bit. We already had the boys that were captured and taken, from Judea, Daniel, and what become Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego under the Babylonian names. They had already kind of been schooled and judged by Nebuchadnezzar and placed in place. All right, this troubled me when it said in the second year here. So go back a little bit. The Babylonian Empire actually started about 20 years earlier, and it does talk. Well, sometime or other, he actually came into full reign at this time, and that's where we get the second year. Now, he, of course, was instrumental in the siege of Israel and capturing these boys and bringing them back, as told. So that explains that. And also in Babylon, they did not recognize a partial year reign as the reign. And it wasn't until you had a full year that they said that was your first year. Now, they're counting, things were a little different back then. So that does, Judd and I had phone conversations. We were going back and studying over this. And we finally come to a conclusion, this is right, and we're straightening the Bible out. But this is something people argue about. Then the king gave a command to call all the magicians, all the astrologers, sorcerers, Chaldeans, to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before him. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. And the king said to them, and then the Chaldeans spoken to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give you the interpretation. First of all, you get these people in, they want to flatter the king. They understand that he has great authority and great power over each and every one in there. And they want to be sure they're on his side and in his favor, because he's already upset. He's had a terrible dream, and he don't really know the dream, but he's got parts of it. He says, at that time, people relied a lot on your soothsayers and the magicians and ones like that to interpret and tell them their fortunes, just like these palm readers out here you see today and others. Then the king answered, said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. Buddy, you going to give it over or else? Now, as Daniel was writing this, he wrote up to this part right here in Hebrew. He switched in his writing to Aramaic. Now, the portions he wrote, other portions in Hebrew of his writings, and that was probably directed more to the Judean Hebrew Jewish people, where Aramaic was the common language of the area that he was in at that time, and was done for all the government business and translations and at that time. So you'll see him switch back and forth in Daniel. Now, we all have English, thank goodness. I can't read Aramaic anyway. I can't read Hebrew either. But it was, at that time, and we find several chapters in Aramaic, chapters in Hebrew, as we go back and find that. That's just a point of interest right there for us all to know. However, if you tell me the dream and its interpretation, verse 6, You shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore tell me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation. You know, common sense, the way we would think, this sounds like a very reasonable request, does it not, to the king? Tell us the dream, we'll give you the interpretation. But go back in Genesis. What about Joseph when he interpreted the dream for the Pharaoh? Yeah. Right back. Similar right here. He got God to interpret it. This is where we're going. They're mentioning the fact that the servants of the king show us the willingness. They're trying to show a willingness to do what it is here, but they have a lack of ability to do it in this. The king answered, I know for certain that you would gain time, and because you see your decision firm, if you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. I have agreed to speak lying and corrupt that you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me until the time is changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall make known, or I shall know that you can give me its interpretation. In other words, you tell me the dream, then I know for sure your interpretations are correct. By putting him off, he's assuming they're going to lie to him. They're going to give false statements, and they're just working their time. Sounds like he's dealt with them before. The Chaldeans answered the king, said, There is not a man on earth that can tell the king's matters. Therefore no king, lord, nor ruler has ever asked such a thing of magicians, or astrologers, or Chaldeans, soothsayers, or whatever you want to call them at this time. They say, no authority has ever asked us to reach out and grab this and bring the whole thing back in without the knowledge of what's there for. So he does issue a decree that all the wise men, all the magicians will be killed. Well, we'll just get that right here. And it is a difficult thing that the king requests. And verse 12, for this reason the king was angry, very furious, and give the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. All. Now, let's recognize the fact right here. Who has been included in the wise men of Babylon? Daniel, Azariah, Hananiah, Michael, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as we know them better. They have been included in this. At this time, they have no knowledge of Nebuchadnezzar having this dream, have no knowledge of him wanting an interpretation of this. They're over here in left field, right field, or where have you. They're out from this. But all wise men and magicians of Babylon are included in this decree. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then the council of the wise man Daniel answered to the commander who had come around, Arah, captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men about. He answered and said to Arah, king's help, why is this decree from the king so urgent? Arah made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king his interpretation. He did not ask the captain of the guard to go tell it. He goes direct because he knew the captain would not speak for him. He's under orders to get rid of it. He gets his time. Then Daniel went to his house and made a decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from God in heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not be punished with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Daniel and his friends, they know who God is. They know God is the ones that can is the one who can interpret this and deliver the message to them, through them, to the king. They have no questions of who to go to. They don't roll no dice. They don't gaze at no stars. They don't throw powder, stuff over their shoulder, put 3 rocks in a bag and leave it at a fork of an intersection, or any of these old wise tales that we hear of how to get a dream interpreted. They go back. They go to the ultimate authority on this, and Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom might be his, and he's charged these things and season. He removes kings and he raises kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep secret things. He knows what is darkness and light, and which dwells in him. I thank you and praise you, O God of fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what is asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's demands." Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said, "Thus, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me therefore to the king, and I will tell him the interpretation." And the captain quickly did so, and Daniel before the king, he said to him, I have found men, the captives of the Judeans, who will make known the king's interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, not Belshazzar, but Belshazzar was a later king that was over that when they were overthrown. The names are similar. Footnote from me. This goes back in my memory. Several years ago, I was listening to one and heard this name was found in an inscription of where Daniel had gone traveling, and they used the Babylon name for him. That proves this did exist, where they said Daniel did not exist, but his name was found inscribed in a foreign country on a tablet dating back to this period of time. Therefore, finding he did exist, but it was his Babylonian name was used. He traveled for the Babylonian government quite extensively as an ambassador doing the work. So did Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego at times. They were, today we call them diplomats, I guess. But anyway, made known the dream which I have seen, and is interpreted. The answer ran in the presence of the king. The secret, he said, demand, the wise men and astrologers and magicians and soothsayers cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals the secret. Verse 28 there. He says to the king, there is a God in heaven who reveals these secrets. Note who he gives authority to, know who he claims gives him the ability to do this. He does not do this on his own. Has made known to the king of Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days your dream and the visions of your hands upon your bed. Whereas, as for you, O king, thoughts come throughout the mind while your bed about what would come to pass after this, and who has revealed the secrets made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes, who made known the interpretation to the king, that you may know through your heart. O king, where watching has behold a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and was awesome. He's beginning to talk about the statue that he dreamed and saw out there.
I had to just start those first few verses. He really knew.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the dream.
He knew, I'm sure he knew parts of it.
No, I'm saying I'm sure Daniel knew the dream.
Yeah. Y'all could pass this around kind of. It's a pretty good image of what I thought I found on the internet of what the statue was. It does meet the descriptions that found here of what he found. And he begins to describe, you, O king, watching and behold, great image. This great image whose splendor was excellent stood before you, and it was awesome. The image head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs partially of iron, and its feet partially of iron and partially of clay. You watched while the stone was cut without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke it into pieces. Then the iron and the clay and the bronze and the silver and the gold was crushed together and became like chaff on a summer threshing floor. And the wind carried it away so that no trace of it was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Starting with, you got gold, the most valuable at that time, silver, bronze, iron, mix of iron and clay, and this huge statue is out there. Daniel told him what he saw now. Then he tells him the image he saw of the rock just cut out without hands. To me, this is a precursor of Jesus Christ that will smash all the kingdoms at one time. Phil, you begin to see what is a precursor of Christ. He's told him the image he saw now. He's giving him the action that come behind him there. In verse 36, now in this dream, we will tell you the interpretation of what is before the king. You are king or king, you, O king, are the King of kings. For God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. First of all, he gets right here. He tells him, you're the ruler. You're the ruler of the Babylon Empire. The empire is absolutely, he is an absolute monarchy in this. He does not share the governor. That's what makes him a little bit more special than the others is. He is an absolute king. When the Medes and Persians came in and took over later, that was a constitutional monarchy between them, and didn't have the absolute power that Nebuchadnezzar had. So you get a little bit of difference there, as you find he's describing as the greatest and best government at the time. And now, the Medes took over in 530 BC. The Babylon Empire had been there since around 625, and it was around 605 that they took over Jerusalem and brought the children back there. And you find 2 generations later when they fall there. The Medes and Persians hung on to it to 530, 200 years, when Alexander the Great took it over. I'm jumping ahead a little bit right here, but we'll back up a little bit and come back to this right here. Now, what we have here too, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in chapter 2, we have Daniel's dream in chapter 7. Nebuchadnezzar's dream is man. It is the power of man on earth. Daniel's dream is overlaid, pretty much the same dream, except he sees the beast and the images in that God gave to him, and you'll see God's dream in chapter 7. We'll have an overlay. We're going to come back and cover some of the same territory again when we do chapter 7. But we'll have from God's point of view instead of Nebuchadnezzar's point of view or man's point of view. But anyway, in chapter 5 is when we find the Medes and Persians taking over, when you know the handwriting on the wall, the hand comes and carves out, Mene, Mene, Tekel Upharsin. And then Daniel interprets, your kingdom has been divided. That night it fell. We'll see that again in chapter 5. You find Daniel, it's a circle in Daniel's way. You go ahead in chapters, you come back, you twist, and you see this developing into a complete thing. By the time we finish it, we hopefully will understand it better. But yeah, we got holes here. We got another hole here. But we'll come back. We keep finding each part is filled in as we get into Daniel and go. Anyway, our next one there when it comes, O King, you're a great king. And wherever the children of men dwell, and the beasts of the field, and the birds of the air, has been given them over to your hand, and has made you the ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. See, he's telling him this is what God has given to him to have this time. But after you shall rise another kingdom inferior to yours. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall be ruler over all the earth. Then the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks pieces and shatters everything, like iron crushes the kingdom, and breaks in pieces and crush all others. What we're seeing here, the Medes and Persians will be the silver. They had the chest and the arms. The two arms is there because it's a divided kingdom of two countries coming together to rule. That's where you get the two irons. Then you got the belly of the brass. That's the Grecian government 200 years later beginning to take everything over with Alexander the Great. By the age of 33, he's crying because he has no more worlds to conquer. Dies at that age too, just about. A little side note here. It's not in the Bible. It's not any commentary that I found too. They went back researching on Alexander the Great. A lot thought he was poisoned. They give other things. Well, he drank from a spring he was not supposed to drink of, but he thought because he had a certain thing that he dipped into his water that he would not be poisoned. Well, I forget what it is. It's a fruit of some kind or a rock of some kind you dipped in. It does take poison out of certain poisons, found out. This was not one of the poisons that was in the spring. He drank for it, and it took a period of time, but they concluded his drinking from this spring water, which he should not have drinking from, it was poison, but he thought he would just show off and do it. I think it's History Channel or something like that where I saw this documentary on him. But, you know, they go back and dig up and dig up. Probably is pretty accurate on it. But he died. And then his kingdom was divided among his 4 generals, which later derived the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was very great, and the iron demonstrates how abusive and overpowering in their rule they were. The Roman Empire was a strong, merciless empire that ruled, and they ruled for a long time. And this is where we begin to see the different ones coming in.
So the Roman Empire, the legs? The Roman Empire is the legs?
They're the iron, the legs right there. Now, let me give the legs, the 2 legs, a little symbol there. The Roman Empire, they grew so large and everything, they were divided into 2 sections. You had an east and west. The east or the western part was in Rome, and well, I had that word this morning, but it'll come back after a while. But they ruled, and what we're looking at here, the empires, these are the ones that directly affected Israel, as we see at that time. And it was under the Roman Empire that Israel was basically destroyed in 70 A.D. You know, the temple, everything was destroyed. They martyred, they killed thousands upon thousands of Jewish people and just run them out of the area. Therefore, the Jewish people were settled all over the known world, and they still are to a point. They did not exist as a country again until after World War II, 1948. Now we've heard of, and we know a little bit about Daniel's 70 of sevens of the Hebrew. You've heard that? We will get to the 70s of seven, and this is the important part of it right here. This is part of what's prophesied in them coming true. Now, as we get to the 70 of sevens in that, in the latter part of the prophecy, yeah, I've looked ahead. We're going to find things coming, being fulfilled this past year. Yeah. You won't even find some of this stuff in commentaries. Yeah, huh? Yeah. The 70, yeah. That's right, it's 70 years ago. There's the 70 again. And something, one of their prophecies, pretty well became fulfilled last year. On a 70-year anniversary to the day. Now what happened, as they were brought in 1948, matter of fact, it was May the 9th, or no, May 19th. On May the 9th, right before they did, well, not before, but in 1950, 2 years later, you had the beginning of what is known as a revival of the Roman Empire. That was the common market coming together. 6 countries come together to form a union and doing trade. Germany, Belgium, France. Greece was last, I give them 6. Not too long after that, they became 10. Your 10 toes is what's thought of. All right, this is a little bit of me on this. We cannot put this a solid thing of the European Union, of the common market, being the revived Roman Empire, although it looks a whole lot like it. Now, the reason I say this, you have other factors that come together that can make a 10. You've got an outfit called OPEC, the Arab countries. There are not 10 of them, but there could be. The one that disturbs me, this is my thought, this is not scriptural, but it goes along with it. The one that disturbs me is the Security Council of the United Nations. There you have members that are part of the old Roman Empire. They're not but 6 of them right now, but they could grow to 10. Recently, they started rotating out with smaller countries instead of the big ones. Each country that sits on the Security Council has an absolute vote. They have to be 100% before anything goes. Last year, or year before last, they wanted to sanction Israel. All of them voted to sanction Israel except one country, the United States. So yeah, it gets down to a one-vote thing where something goes. Every country that sits on that has veto power over it. United Nations worries me anyway. I don't know how you feel, but you know, they're a country. But as we're looking forward to it here, this prophecy comes from Nebuchadnezzar until the second coming of Jesus Christ as it goes on. Now, history has validated all these prophecies all the way up through the Roman Empire. It's pretty close to what we see in some things today, but some things have not transpired totally of what we see here yet. But the Mede and Persia, the Grecian takeover, the Roman Empire, there's no question to this prophecy that came in the 530s BC has been fulfilled up through the Roman Empire. It looks as though a good portion has been fulfilled up to the reestablishment of Israel as a nation, because it takes place on exact dates that we find prophesied later. We find so much still being fulfilled. Oh yeah, the 6 countries of France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg was the countries there. I knew I had them in the notes there someplace. Verse 42. As the toes and feet were partially iron and partially of clay, the kingdom shall be partially strong and partially fragile. In other words, you've got strong parts. You've got parts. Iron and clay just does not bond together. You can't make dirt and a metal bond together. Clay's dirt, any way we look at it. You can shape it, you can sculpt it. Clay can be made strong, but it will not bond with that. As you said, the iron mixed with the ceramic clay, they will mingle, and the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one to another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of the king, the God of heaven will set upon the kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to another people. It shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms and stand forever. That's in the future. It hadn't got here yet. That's the second coming of Jesus. That's right, he's coming. As sure as we're here today, he's coming. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and it was broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold. The great God has made known to the king which has come to pass after this. The dream is certain, that is, interpretation is sure. Daniel said, as sure as you saw in the dream, my interpretation is sure. You can count on that. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should be presented offerings and incense to him, to Daniel. We go through Daniel here and we see different occasions where King Nebuchadnezzar, as great as he is, he realizes there's a God up there. It takes several times for it to get through to him. He's a hard-headed. He's about as hard as that iron, a little hard. But he would not accept. He thought of himself as the God, not just the king, but as the God of the known world at that time. He built fabulous gardens. He built things, and he'd get out and look. We'll see later where he'd get out and look and have great pride in what he had built and done. The King king answered Daniel and said, truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and reveal the secret, since you could reveal this secret. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many gifts, and made him ruler over the province of Babylon, and chief administrators over all wise men. Also Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gates of the king. There we did get through chapter 2. Comments. You beginning to get into Daniel? You beginning to like this? This is intriguing. And I'm getting more out of this than anybody else in.